So the title of this session is Measurement and the PR and Comms Professional, Why Measurement Should Be Non-Negotiable. It's not a debate about AVEs in particular. We've moved past that. We want to take away from the session today a series of tangible ideas that we can commit, all of us, and certainly AMEC will commit to implementing to help everyone in the room and all the PR associations, all your clients, whatever region of the world you may be in, to embrace measurement. So let me introduce once again Richard Bagnall, the chairman of AMEC and CEO of Prime Research UK. Richard and I will moderate the session. But the exciting thing is we've brought together PR and client leaders from Asia and internationally. We've got 12 speakers involved in this session. And to get us going, I'm going to invite onto the stage our first speakers. Please come up. Dr. Tina McCorkindale, Francis Ingham, Dr. Colonel Rajeev Kumar, Brian Lott, Mr. Xu Rundong, and Andy West. And at any time, as well as the people on stage, at any time we can go to a number of measurement and insight experts from AMEC member companies that we have in the audience. And when I call your name out, would you mind just standing up so everyone can see who you are? So we have Juan Fernando Giraldo at the back, Paul Hender, thank you, Mazen Nahawi, and Kali Sakas. Kali is waving from the back. Okay, how the session will work is that each of these speakers will come to the podium for 5 minutes to give their view of the measurement world. We'll take one question after each speaker because we need to wake everyone up. It's always difficult after any kind of an awards event getting people involved. But we're asking our speakers to follow the theme, be positive, what more can we do? And at this point, over to Richard.
Thank you, Barry. Good morning, everyone. Wake up. Very warm welcome to day 2. Thank you so much for coming. Congratulations, my congratulations, as well as Barry's, to all of last night's winners. And Barry, thank you for hosting a fantastic evening. Well done, everyone, for being here. A special thank you from me to Barry. This is the 5th International Summit on the trot that Barry has had me on first session the morning after the awards dinner. So particular thanks, Barry, for that. Now, the aim then of this session is to encourage Asia to make measurement matter more. And that's whether you're a client, whether you're a PR agency, or whether, of course, you're a measurement vendor. We want to make measurement important in this region. It's why we brought the summit over here. And between us, and with the help of the experts on the stage and all of us in the audience, we've come a long way, but I think there's a lot more that we can still do. So if we look, thank you, Barry, if we look at some of the milestones that AMEC has taken, it seems a long time ago now, but back in 2010 was when we launched the Barcelona Principles, which I think did so much in conjunction with other trade associations, including, of course, the IPR, which I think have done so much to give the industry a reference point of what good should look like. The problem with the principles always is they're exactly that. They're perhaps a 30,000-foot view, and they don't tell people what to actually do. So to help address those problems, we started to produce frameworks. And in Lisbon in 2011, we created the Valid Metrics frameworks. In 2013 at Madrid, we launched our social media measurement frameworks. In 2014 in Amsterdam, it was about helping something that's really at the heart of AMEC's DNA, which is education support. So we launched the user guides and how-tos and videos and that kind of stuff. By 2015, it was time to give the Barcelona principles a refresh. Some of them were sounding a little bit dated, so an international team got together and looked at them and brought them up to speed. And that, of course, led us to, again, this need to help people operationalize them. And also, by now, everything's about integrated communications, and we really needed, instead of to have a whole host of separate frameworks, to create a new integrated evaluation framework which had the focus on helping people measure across paid, earned, shared, and owned, but also shifting the emphasis of measurement from not just counting the stuff that's easy to count, all the output stuff, but moving to saying, how's this helped shape against the objectives of our organization? So what are the outtakes that have come about from our work? What are the outcomes? And what are the business impact? And that's what the framework has done. And if you can't come to my workshop later, I just want to take this opportunity to say that as of today, a new iteration of the framework has gone live. To see it, it's at the same URL, so amecorg.com/AMEC framework. You may need to clear your cache to force it to load the new version, but the new functionality will allow you to log in with your own private username, and then you can save your progress, and you can have up to 10 frameworks stored in the program, all for free still, and all the different members of your different teams, different clients, each one can have up to 10 frameworks. So the idea is that you can use it to plan and to put your inputs, your targets before you run a campaign, and then you can create a second framework perhaps which you measure against, and so you've got a before and after. And I think that's functionality that was asked for and that we've been keen to respond to. So we've published the results of the annual AMEC Global Insight Survey at the start of the summit. And the survey shows that huge progress is being made, and those of you who went to Phil and Rainer's session yesterday morning would have heard all about it. But there are two key areas that I wanted to highlight. We're not talking in great detail about AVEs, but I think it is important just to stress this is one of the big successes of this educational program that we've run. Back in 2010, when the Barcelona Principles were launched, 80% of our members were saying that there was a demand from clients across the globe still for advertising value equivalence. That number has fallen now to 18%, just a few years later. And I think that is a great testament to the power of all of us working together. But of course, there's still the final journey to take, which is why we created this new initiative, which hopefully you've seen, that has gone live on our website yesterday. So please do go and take a look and help share it and promote it. In conjunction with that, what we're also seeing is that clients are asking less for the automated stuff, the counting for the sake of counting, but they want insights. And my message again on that is insights does not mean this chart went from 3 to 5. We need to really get inside the data and help clients draw out the things that aren't obvious to help them refine their strategy and improve their business. But we're seeing great demand, and I'm hearing from many of our members that this is one of the key areas of investment that our membership is making. And another interesting result, which I think is particularly relevant to this session, is that we're seeing that 78% of our members are saying that more PR consultancies than ever are recognizing the importance of proper, credible measurement and analysis. And in the early days, I've been doing this for 20 years, a lot of PR agencies saw measurement as a threat either to their budget because it took some budget away, or perhaps it might suggest that they're not doing a good enough job. They're embracing it now because they know that in the same way you don't drive a car with your eyes shut, you must have feedback on how you're doing, and that Just because something isn't working doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing a bad job, but you just know to refine, good Lord, you just know to refine the work that you're doing and to improve it. Of course, it does mean that for the vendors in the room, there is now more competition, and again, that's fantastic because all of us have to raise our game. So all of this, I think, is very encouraging. But what we want today's session to do then is to help us know what more can we do now that we've brought the summit to Asia Pacific. How can we support this region to really make measurement matter more over here and to bring it into line with the rest of the world? Barry.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. So let's start the session, and pleasure to welcome Tina McCorkindale, President and CEO for the Institute of Public Relations from the US. Tina, your header slides there.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. The Institute for Public Relations is a nonprofit research foundation devoted to research that matters to the profession. We have a measurement commission that we've had in existence for 20 years, and we appreciate the opportunity to work with great partners like AMEC. So first, I would like to briefly touch on measurement and discuss how I see the future of our industry and how we need to prepare not just for today, but for tomorrow. So as Fritz said yesterday, measurement should never be done for measurement's sake. It should not be a box that we check or we do it just to prove our worth or value. It has to be strategic. So let's shake things up a bit. As the great Bob Dylan said, times they are a-changing. In 2016, PricewaterhouseCoopers launched the result of their global CEO survey of 1,400 CEOs. The CEOs reported a need to apply data and analytics more effectively to measure and express performance around business and strategy, purpose, and values. This is all while operating in a time of tremendous change. There's growing expectations of trustworthiness and transparency in a very fractured and changing media environment. According to the most recent Cisco Visual Networking Index, mobile data traffic has grown 18-fold over the past 5 years and will increase 7-fold for the next 5 years. So how does this impact us? Our profession needs to be better prepared for this rapidly changing world, and we are not there yet, and we're not even close. So let's look more into our future. Multiple research sources, including McKinsey and Pew Research Internet Center, predict that massive numbers of jobs are at risk as smart self-learning systems or artificial intelligence are increasing. Can our jobs be automated? To some degree, they can be. According to a recent Pew Research study about the future of jobs, workers of the future will need to deeply cultivate abstract and systems thinking, complex communication, and the ability to thrive in diverse environments. So added to all this are the 17 sustainable goals by the UN, 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. As you can see, we also have societal changes that we have to contend with, and many companies are focusing on certain goals to help make our planet stronger and healthier. So with all these changes, what is the future of our profession? I think it's more important than ever. So we will always have some mainstays of measurement, but what is the future media model, and is that really our focus? The media environment is changing in how people consume information. So we need to be strategic and make sure we're measuring the right things. I think we do our profession a tremendous disservice when we measure inflated or invalid metrics. We engage in this kind of success theater, where we talk about billions of eyeballs saw our program through impressions in just a very regional, small area. We also need to look at the validity of what we do and come up with a stronger model. We need to pull in more measures from psychology and sociology and the other ologies. We need to measure for the long term. We need to look at trust, reputation, engagement, loyalty, values, and measure them as accurately as possible. I mean, now we have access to all sorts of quantifiable behaviors. We have biometrics like my Fitbit, habits, sleep patterns, even through my Fitbit, physiological factors, facial recognition. We can scan and look at our emotions. We can look at our brains and see what they're doing. We can further hone in on specific demographics, psychographics, technographics, and other attitudinal behavior to drive insights. So with increased personalization, I mean, you can just look at our smartphones. We can grasp and collect data that's more nuanced. We can incorporate more predictive analytics, build more formulas. We need to learn new skills and tools, how to work with data and algorithms, statistical literacy, behavioral science, how attitudes and opinions affect behavior. Our future, we have 3D modeling, printing, holographics, virtual reality, and how to implement findings from AI and automation. Technology is the center. You look at IBM and Watson and what it's doing with its predictions. You look at Alexa at Amazon and how it's changing the future of behavior. So with all these changes to our global society, we have to be prepared for our measurement techniques to evolve as well. Gleaning insights are key, but as Richard said, we sort of throw this term around, that it's a percentage change from 3 to 5%, and these are not insights. We need to really make sure we are defining and driving insights. So we need standards for mutual understanding. We need to tell stories with data, how to evaluate sources, how to locate information in a flood of data, and I mean a flood of data, how to influence, how to do research. It's not just visualizing data, it's how to tell true stories around it. So I'm sure you may all be familiar with the Washington Post, and they have a bot. It's the heliograph software, and it writes stories. So if you looked at the Olympics in Rio, a lot of the stories were written by a robot, and it does a really great job. So, and as Mark Andreessen said, I mean, software is truly eating our world. So Barry Chudakov of Certain Research said that our greatest skill will be the ability to think through the cloud of facts, data, experience, and strategic direction that products and services require. So to sum it up, we have to get this right. We have to evolve as a profession and be prepared for the future that awaits us. Thank you.
Stay there. Tina, stay here. Yeah. Thank you, great start. So just to remind you, after every speaker, we're coming to the audience just to warm us up after an awards night. So a question for Tina from the audience, please. Please don't be shy.
Hi, Tina. I just wonder if you talk a little bit about how do you stay, or how do companies stay focused amidst that flood of data? So there's so many new techniques, so many new channels, so, and it changes every day. How would you recommend that companies? Do you pick one? Do you pick several? How do you think about that?
Yeah, so I think I know that some companies like Southwest Airlines, they're hiring behavioral scientists that are working in communication departments to help do that, because you have to. It's really challenging. Because you have data scientists, but they may be in other areas. And what I've learned, I was also an analyst at a company that's here, and what I learned is that a lot of people don't share data, and they're also not working operationally across the different components of an organization. And making sure that you have someone who understands data and knows what data is available, because there's so much operational data out there that we're not taking advantage of or using. We had a conference last week and with Prime Research, and one of the speakers was from GE Power Digital, and he talked about how integrating data has helped predict with a 80% confidence that when a power outage is going to happen. So then the communication department can help do messaging around it. Southwest Airlines, for example, they use Net Promoter Score to tie to their operational data with on-time performance. And then they were able to implement a communication program on how to improve on-time performance, made a tremendous impact. So I think it's making sure that you're sort of integrating and talking amongst departments, and one's finding out what data is there. Two is finding out someone who can actually understand the data and making sure the comms team is on board with it all.
Thank you, that's great.
Thank you.
Great, thanks for the question, Fritz. Our next guest is from India, and works for Tata Group, and is the chair of IABC Asia Pacific region. Please welcome Dr. Colonel Rajeev Kumar.
Morning, everybody. It's a great honor to be here in the midst of a distinguished audience of very serious and focused communication professionals who are dedicated to improve the quality of communication in the discipline of communication measurement. And I thank Barry for inviting me here and be part of this lovely AMEC conference. I will be talking about, is measurement the Achilles heel? This is the question to provoke you to think, if you are not, whether you would like to be, and is what we got to do about this to see that we never become the Achilles heel of communication. And I speak from a client's perspective because I am now part of the Tata group, and let me give me some views. And as the theme of this conference is disruptive communication, I looked at some of the disruptors, which some of which Tina has already covered. The first thing is to look at the exponential technologies. All these points overlap each other. Today, the advancement of technology is at a very fast pace. In the 19th century, it was the mechanical industrial revolution. 20th century brought in the electrical technological revolution. And now there is a fusion of the electrical, mechanical, and computation and intelligence, and we are entering an age of robots and robotics. And when we talk of robots, we normally imagine something human-like with 2 limbs and 2 arms and be able to talk to us. But robotics means any device which has got intelligence and which can act based on certain programs and software. And it is already influencing our lives. We are carrying so many mobile platforms, so many screens already with us. We are entering an age of wearables, where the distinction between individuals and the electronic ecosystem, the information ecosystem, will get so diffused that you won't know where the individual finishes and where the machine starts. So in that age, the challenge for communicators is going to be much more, and we got to be prepared for it on how we are going to measure in that kind of a scenario where there is a worldwide web of interconnected sensors. There's the Internet of Things, which are going to have artificial intelligence, which will surpass human intelligence. So this domain of computer science involved with human interaction will be the most interesting and relevant for us communicators. The next thing to talk about is how artificial intelligence is entering the domain of creativity, how it is able to enter the field of architecture, fine arts, music, how it is able to, some program is able to write poems for us. Scientists are looking at not only computers as an aid for creative artists, they are looking at computers to replace creative artists. That is called computational creativity. So there may be completely replacement of creative artists. There will be a total democratization of creativity. In that kind of a scenario, how will measurement be done? How will communication be done? We got to keep imagining on different possibilities. If you look at the media, it's going to be a media-saturated future. If you look at the last 50 years, the kind of advancements in the media have been the most impactful. And we have moved on from different traditional media onto new devices. But primarily, if you look at the new platforms, these are purely remediation of the traditional media. And you are seeing the same content, but on different platforms and multiple screens. So often we look at the cultural change. Our media culture will be both ubiquitous and heterogeneous. So while we have multiple medias, you will also have the media surrounding you all the time in the environment. How do we then measure these multiple media at the same time and get a unified result? The other point is about not everything is revolutionary. It is fashionable to call every new product, every new development as revolutionary because that sells a lot. But if you find that most of it is remix and remediation by borrowing and refashioning earlier media and media forms. If you look at the corporate challenges that we face, I'm part of corporate, so you'll find that different departments are functioning as silos. So there's need for integration there. They need a greater understanding of the value of measurement, which is not there. There's a need to link performance indicators to communication. This topic has been covered yesterday. Proving causality, claiming credit for your communication. This is an area where we are hesitant to claim credit. Relationship measurement. We are not focusing on relationship measurement. We know that there is a need for creating a bank of goodwill, and we know goodwill is intangible, but how will we measure what is a bank balance of goodwill? That is where we need to act much more. Of course, budgeting for measurement is self-explanatory. And finally, I will talk about what are the essentials for the future. We need to instill a culture for strategic approaches to communication and measurement. We need to have agency and clients working as partners, not as agency and clients as separate entities, but as partners. You integrate and become a part of the team. Education and certification for measurement. AMEC is already on the job, and I see that they're doing a lot of work in this area. This conference, or besides the conference, they are reaching out to many industries and academic bodies to collaborate, which is a very good thing for the future. And like I said, you need to keep pace with the myriad of techno-human interfaces. Lastly, what gets measured gets done. This is an age-old maxim. You don't do it, you don't get it done. Thank you.
So I'm taking a question for Rajeev at this point, if anyone has one. I've got a blind spot over here, so if you are putting your hand up, maybe I don't see it yet. Oh, there is one. Okay, I'm in my blind spot. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Ruben from Mediaverse. The picture you've painted of the future, the overlapping technologies, the biological, computational interface is fascinating and exciting. But do you feel that it's starting or potentially going to reduce us to consultancies? Providing our own thoughts on what this means as opposed to doing the analytical work, if that makes sense.
Okay. Can you repeat the question?
Could you maybe break it down, please?
It feels like the growing interaction between humans, computers, the automatic technology, etc., is removing all of the, I don't know how to describe it, the work we do in analyzing and understanding, and it's going to reduce us to simply being another management consultancy. Is that the way you see our role going, or do you see a different path?
Okay, so what you are asking is whether this new technologies that will come in will reduce the role that we will play in communication measurement? The answer is no. It is a question of adapting to the new technologies, trying to understand how technology works, and trying to see what is the purpose of communication is to develop understanding to achieve goals and objectives that we set for ourselves. There will be no change in that, because ultimately we got to get work done in this world, and without communication we cannot get it done. It's just the media that is changing, the interfaces are changing, and therefore the challenge for measurement personnel like you would be to see that how you can measure the impact that your communication is making through a multifarious media setup. How, when we design robots or robotic systems, how these sensors, information can all be integrated into a big data and get you a unified result. So there'll be a lot of technological changes that will have to come in the way you measure things, where you have to integrate measurement into the program itself. When you design many sensors, you'll have to look at that. Therefore, there'll be need for cooperation with academicians, need for cooperation with scientists. When they design programs, how you can integrate your own requirements into the system.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you. So from India, we next welcome, excuse my back, our guest from AMEC's latest strategic partner, the China International Public Relations Association, Mr. Xu Rundong, Vice Secretary General of CIPRA itself. Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you, Barry. I'm come from China International PR Association. This association, CIPR, is China's National PR Industry Association. The history of PR in China is not very long. Back to 1980s, with China's economic reform, multinational business came to China, and those companies set up PR teams. That's the beginning of PR in China. In 1991, CIPR was established, and is supervised by China Foreign Affairs Ministry. Now, CIPR has more than 400 members, which are coming from PR firms, marketing firms, big companies, and government and academic organizations. I'm trying to give you an overall picture of PR industry in China by the two following graphs. The first one is the total annual fee growth in Chinese market in the last 10 years. Yesterday, CIPR released the annual survey reports on PR industry. The total revenue in 2016 has reached 50 million Chinese yuan, equivalent to $7.2 billion US dollars. Back to the year of 2007, the figure was 1.5 billion US dollars. 10 years, 5 times in total revenue growth. And the second graph is telling us which industry is spending more on PR last year. The first industry goes to automobile industry, more than 30% of the total revenue. 8 years ago, China has been the largest auto market in the world. For PR agencies, if they don't have clients coming from automobile, they cannot be on the top 10 list. And the second industry goes to IT and communication. That's because very rapid growth of Chinese e-commerce and social media. The third is fast consumer goods. And finally, what CIPR have done are measurements of communication in the past years. In 2012, CIPR joined AMEC Summit Asia in Hong Kong. The executive chairman of CIPR attended the summit and delivered a speech. A few months ago, Barry came to Beijing and visited CIPR. We signed a strategic agreement on how to improve measurement of communication in Chinese PR markets. Last year, CIPR and Rudy Finn joined hands to conduct a survey on improvements for measurements and evaluation in Chinese markets. Seminars and workshops organized by CIPR in the past few years. And finally, in the past 30 years, the PR industry has grown very dramatically in Chinese markets, which we called quantitative growth. But now it's time for turning into quality growth. So I'm sure in the next 10 years, measurement of communication will be very great potential in Chinese markets and will be widely used. Thank you, Barry. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Xu. Again, I'm seeking early interaction with each of our speakers. Do you have a question of our guest? Yes, down here, please.
Hi, thank you very much. We hear an awful lot about B2C communications in China and the potential of the Chinese consumer market. Could you tell us how is the market for B2B communications and PR between businesses? Is that growing as quickly as the consumer PR market is?
So you're asking about B2C, right?
B2B, the development of B2B in China.
B2C. You want to know more about B2B, right?
B2B. Yeah.
如果是这个针对企业的这块的这个公关也好，或者是这个传播也好，有些什么？因为听了很多关于 B2C 的，中国是个很大的市场。那 B2B 这块我们有些什么样的市场？有些什么样的一些现象啊之类的？
它是
针对企业业务的，
是测量是吧？
对对对，测量评估、公关都可以去说。
Sorry, I speak Chinese. 中国的针对企业呢，主要是一些包括政府机构，还有一些大的企业。其实呢，这个政府客户呢，是未来是一个很大的需求啊。特别是对我们政府的品牌啊，而且现在中国政府呢正在做“一带一路”它的对外形象的传播，跟国际的交流，可能是呢对测量这个方法来说呢，未来是对越来越重要啊。就像刚才我说的，在过去呢是中国的公关市场更强调数量的增长，可能未来呢强调质量的增长。所以对于企业、对于政府我相信在未来呢，这个测量的方法会越来越重要。
Sorry, Mr. Xi basically talk about, for B2B is kind of similar to the communication or evaluation towards measurement towards the corporate relationship communication. And nowadays in China, we were, the President Xi, there's a national strategy on the one belt and one region, one by one road, sorry. So there are more and more, we already see a lot of requirements on measurement and evaluation of the branding of the government, Chinese government, especially their new policies. And the similar request also from Chinese enterprises or enterprises operating in China, in the B2B area. So nowadays, as you mentioned, we see a lot of great work has been done on the B2C part, but we already see a lot of new trend on B2B as well as from the government agencies.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Xu. Thank you. So our next speaker is based in the UK, but very much a PR leader with an international remit. So we're welcoming Francis Ingham, Director General, PRCA, and Chief Executive of ICCO. Francis.
Thank you, Barry. Now, at the beginning of the session, you said about moving on from AVEs, and the reality is that our industry simply hasn't, and we need to face up to that reality. Now, I speak from the perspective as Chief Executive of ICCO, representing over 40 associations around the world, and Director General of the PRCA in the UK, Middle East, and North Africa. We have a problem as an industry, and we need to recognize that. In the UK, so one of the most developed PR markets in the world, we still use AVEs, and we shouldn't. We did a survey of our agency members a couple of months ago. 35% of them still use AVEs on a regular basis. That is the bad news. The good news is that 44% of our agency members used to use them and no longer do. They are moving away from this, but it is still there and it is still a problem. We asked our agency members, why do you still use AVEs? And over half of them said it's because clients want us to do so. That is the heart of the problem. Agencies want to move away from AVEs and clients keep on dragging them back. On the positive side, we asked our agency members, thinking about 2017 compared to 2016, how will your use of AVEs move? Will you use them more? 0% of our members said they will use them more. will you use them less? 58% of our members said they will use them less. So our industry in the UK is moving in the right direction, but there's still a great deal more to do. And what goes for the UK, I know from my eco role, is doubly true of many other countries. I judge about a dozen award programs over the last year, and the great number of AVEs that are mentioned in those campaign entries is truly astonishing. We delude ourselves if we think that this is not still an issue. As an industry, we have yet to move on from AVEs. And I say that really with regret. I've been coming to this conference for years, and we still discuss this ridiculous use of a metric that does not measure our industry, but that measures a different one instead. So we have, Barry asked for positive measures to tackle the issues that challenge our industry. So I can say 4 of them today on behalf of the PRCA in the UK, Middle East and North Africa, and on behalf of ECO. Barry and I have agreed that we will revisit, republish, and refresh the guide to measurement that the PRCA and ECO and AMEC first published in 2013, setting out basic parameters for effective evaluation. And within that guide, we will produce a charter for the first time for my members and for Barry's members of basic things we expect from one another. And in my view, item 1 in that charter will be that my members will not ask for AVEs and Barry's members will not provide AVEs. And in that one move, we could resolve this problem straight away. The next thing we will do is we will put on a conference for the first time, a PRCA ECO conference with AMEC in London, addressed solely to evaluation in September of this year. We will invite people from all around the world to it, and I hope to see many of you there. And I see this very much as a further step in our collaboration between our respective organizations. And the final thing that we will do is this. ECO runs global awards in London of every year. We will no longer accept any entry that uses AVEs. And I think in that moment, representing the 50-odd countries that we do around the world, we will really make a big step forward. My final comment in the 31 seconds I have left is this, a tribute and a plea. The tribute is to Barry, who has almost single-handedly done so very much to move our industries forward over all of these years, and his dedication to this issue is monumental. The plea, however, is this. We as an industry, PR agencies, PR in-house teams, evaluation specialists need to come together more often. We need to get out of our silos. I was struck last night by the fact that of all the measurement and evaluation companies who won at the awards, everyone was there. Of the PR companies that won last night at the awards, several were not. And they need to be in the same room together if we are going to address this problem together. And I hope we can take significant steps forward to doing that. And in that regard, I definitely invite you all to London in September. And let's address this together. Thank you.
So thank you, Francis, for positive ideas there. Take a question for Francis now, and we'll take more in the Q&A later. You've given them too much content, Francis. I'm just checking one more time. And we'll pick you up in Q&A. Thank you. It's worth saying September is a deliberate month because it's when AMEC runs Measurement Month. And we have a late question from our chairman here.
Microphone on here. Francis, sorry, a late question. Do you have data available of your members that could be broken down by region of where that AVE demand is. I think that would be useful information to help us on the journey that we're all going.
Speaking on behalf of ECO, no, but for the first time in our work report 2017, we're going to do that, and happy to share it with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. We're now going to welcome Brian on stage. Brian Lott, coming to us from another part of the world, from the United Arab Emirates.
Hi, good morning. So I just have a couple things to add and maybe a couple of thoughts from a corporate and client perspective. I think we're trying to address how to make measurement non-negotiable, and my observation is that it's only negotiable when the people who are paying for it or the people who value it don't see that value. And one of the mistakes I think we make as professionals too often is that we attribute value to things that may not be perceived by the people that we report to. So in the context of our work at Mubadala on an annual basis, I want to make sure that what I'm measuring, however that is, has two key components to it. One, it's understandable. And part of our job, I think, as professionals is to translate a lot of very technical language into things that business people understand. And they certainly understand return on investment. They understand measurement that shows real business, tangible business value, whether that's new customers, whether that's sales, whether that's an increase in reputation. So just helping to define those terms almost as a translator for our businesses, I think is extremely important, whatever the metric may be. And then I think the second piece is to define early, particularly if you are working with an executive, what's most impactful to them. So that when you agree on what that metric is, you can actually show demonstrable progress or not, and take steps to address those actions. I think the way we do it is fairly straightforward and fairly simple. All of the back metrics that I use to show my boss, for example, what works and what doesn't work are language that I understand, and working with vendors we can agree on. What he wants to see is, what are we doing? What's the output that we're contributing that is driving the business strategy forward? And so early in the year, we'll try and define what those 2, 3, 4 big initiatives are, whether it's a campaign, whether it is more coverage around a certain part of the business. And then I can keep him updated on a regular basis as to why how that's working, how our work is benefiting the company. And then it's less about the technical aspect of the measurement itself and more what business results are coming from our work together. Too often what we measure is valuable to us and not to the people who want to see us achieve business results. So my strong suggestion is that we all try and work as a community with the people that we report to on things that matter more to them, and that way it's a win-win. Thank you.
Say that, please. Thank you. Again, coming out to you, is there an early question for Brian? Very wise words there. Brian, don't take offense. It'll come later. Our last speaker is Andy West, based in the UK, but again, very much with an international remit for his company, Hotwire.
Thank you very much, Barry, and thank you for the invitation to speak this morning. So, as Barry says, I represent Hotwire PR. We're the sort of small to mid-size agency rather than the large global sort of behemoths that are out there. So I speak with a voice that talks to a lot of clients that perhaps don't have the budgets for measurement. But from an agency point of view, every one of our clients in our offices and our partners around the world expects and gets measurement today. So I don't think measurement is actually the issue. I think the problem is it's the type of measurement that's being asked for. And it's the level of understanding on what is possible from measurement that is challenging us and our clients out there in the field every day. I'm pleased to say that we rarely hear the dreaded AVE word from our client base around the world. There are exceptions, but as an agency, we are very committed to abiding by the Barcelona principles, and actually, when we get asked for this, either as part of an RFP or in a pitch or by an existing client, we push back very vigorously, and we challenge it. Ultimately, it's the client's decision, but I think it's up to us as agencies to push back and challenge the request for AVE wherever that is possible. But I think the challenge is, as Jamin Spitzer from Microsoft said yesterday, is that too much measurement seeks to justify. And I think the majority of our clients that I see day to day are using measurement to justify what they do and not to glean insights into what they might do to make business better in the future. There's still too much measurement in kilos. To quote one of the speakers yesterday, the dreaded press clip book still has currency, and that drives me insane. And there's way too much in the way of vanity metrics as well. And these are all things that I think as an industry we have to address. So I believe that good measurement is actually a shared responsibility. From an agency perspective, we have to put push the measurement agenda further and harder than ever before. We have a responsibility to our profession to be robust in the way that we push back on our clients and advise them on what good measurement looks like. From a client perspective, we're looking to work with them to break down some of the organizational silos that exist. I heard yesterday on several occasions about communications operating in a silo away from the marketing and sales organization. It is our belief that communications must be totally integrated into the sales and marketing organization for it to be truly effective and for it to truly align with business outcomes. Without that, we can't hope to be successful. So I think we have to work with our client partners to develop meaningful outcome-based metrics. There is still a lack of understanding and a lack of confidence about being able to align communications to business metrics. We need to share, or we ask that clients share their business goals with the agency. That sounds like a very obvious statement, but time and again, where communications operates in a silo, we as an agency are given direction to meet communication goals, not business goals. So how do we embed great measurement across the industry? First of all, I think we have to realize that the big guns are parked on our lawn. What I mean by that is that the big consultancies, the Accentures, the Deloittes, they've been buying up agencies in Accenture with Monkey in Australia, Deloitte with Register Larkin. They're starting to encroach on our turf. I think we can see threat from IBM and from Adobe and from Salesforce. These guys are going to start to do what we do. So we have to step up and show return on investment. And if we don't, these guns will fire and we'll find our world very different in the next few years. So practically speaking, what can we actually do about this? I think first and foremost, to pick up on Francis's point, we have to simply refuse to use AVEs. And we have to make it a prerequisite of membership of any professional organization that we will not accept AVEs as a measure of communications. We have to work with organizations like AMEC to continue to educate our people and our clients around the world as to what good measurement looks like. We must share the best practice that exists and comes out of events like this more widely. We need to push the new framework. I'm very interested and excited to hear the news from Richard, and we'll be rushing to that URL as soon as this session is over. And we need to recognize and celebrate success. And just picking up on what Fritz said yesterday, any award that has AVEs in it must be discredited and publicly shamed. So from our perspective, from Hotwire's perspective, our commitment to this is that we will continue with our global education program. We'll make sure that our 9 offices and 20 or so partners around the world understand what great measurement looks like. We'll continue to spread the gospel. And I put a call out to everybody here. We are all communicators. Let's communicate. We've all been active on Twitter. We're all part of LinkedIn. We're on Facebook. We have blogs. Let's use the channels that we use every day to spread the gospel about great measurement. And let's get the debate raging around the world. Let's continue to support AMEC and push this agenda as vigorously as we can, both within our agencies and across our client organizations. And most importantly from us, from an agency perspective, we will continue to work with our clients to develop best-in-class measurement practices and show up next year at the AMEC Summit and clean up on the awards. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andy. Just hold fire a moment. Just in the interest of time management, can I ask members of the second stage, Deepa, Nitin, Fritz, Kiri, David, and Lavanya, to make your way up on the stage? Thank you. Now, I'm coming for a question from Andy, and microphone helper, thank you.
Hi, thank you. Jan from Argos from Germany. I think you made a right point with saying that we have many competitors that are new, like Adobe, like all the big company and computer companies that are going to come to our home turf. I don't really get the full answer. Maybe you said we should go to AVEs, but I think that's really a small part of the answer that we should give to this new benchmark situation. Maybe you could give a bit more information how you think we could cope with this brand new and really astonishing new situation for our companies.
Sorry, how we cope with the threat from the big consultancies? I think we just have to be smarter in the way that we're working with our clients. You know, these guys are coming from the top down. And communications is often an afterthought. But if you are an Accenture and you're doing a $100 million digital transformation project, and you talk with that client and say, hey, you know what, communications is an important part of the success of this project from a change management perspective, we can do that for you, we'll charge you £1 million for it, then it's small change in a $100 million project. And they've got the intellectual capability, if not the experience, to do that. Because they speak the language of the CMO, they speak the language of the CEO, and they have a seat at that table. And unless we as an industry start to talk that language and ensure that our clients understand that we bring true business value to what we do, then those larger consultants are going to come in and eat our lunch. I think it's as simple as that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So we're going to move on to the next slide, if the desk could do that. Right, okay. So I'm not going to introduce them fully by name, by title. Every minute counts. You see their names on the top there. So we have, from your left, we have David Watson, we have Kiri Sinclair, we have Fritz, Quinn, we have Deepa Day, we have Nitin, Mantri, and we have Lavanya. Yes. And this part of the session will be run by Richard.
Great, thank you, Barry. Hello, everyone, again. Thank you to the first panel for some great comments, and thank you to the second part of the panel for joining me. We've got some really senior people here, and I would really be grateful if we could all take advantage of their combined knowledge and expertise. So I'm going to ask a few questions, but I really want to encourage some participation and comments with the panel. But I thought I'd go to David first. David picked up awards yesterday, fantastic presentation as well yesterday, thank you for that, but picked up on behalf of Public Health England the In-House Platinum Award yesterday. And David and I and Professor Jim, we all do some work with Alex Aitken on the Government Communications Services Evaluation Council. And the real success of UK government communications over the last few years has been taking measurement from an afterthought to being fully mainstream across thousands of UK government communicators. Perhaps you could tell us how many there are, but there are thousands. What is the success? What drove that success, and what can the Asia-Pacific region and the wider industry as a whole learn from what works so well within UK government communications?
3,500 communicators, Richard, in total, working across the UK government. What was the driving force for us? Well, a crisis. And never waste a good crisis. So it was the 2008 financial crisis that really made us stop and think about what we were doing. I don't think I'm breaking any confidences that when the coalition government came in the UK in 2010, one of the first things that the relevant minister asked us was, how much money do you spend on communications? And we said, about £1 billion. And then he said, so what do I get for that? And we said, we don't know. That was embarrassing. And that embarrassment was at the heart of the need to change and to embrace measurement and evaluation. But I think one of the things that's also driven a lot of change for us is this idea of what actually do I want to know? And this is where I'd like to come to this point around AVEs, because like a lot of clients, we used to use AVEs. But what does an AVE actually tell me? All it tells me is how much I would have spent on advertising. Well, what use is that? Because when I buy advertising, and I buy a lot of advertising, that isn't a figure I'm particularly interested in. I know how much I've spent on it. It's not telling me whether it's worked or not. It's completely irrelevant to whether I am achieving my objective. And getting clients to recognize that it is not something they pay particular attention to from their advertising industry, so why on earth would you pay attention to it from your PR industry? So I think that for me is really important. And one last thought on this. I've been hearing a lot from the debate generally and from the panel about this need to make sure that clients aren't asking for AVEs. And there's been frankly, a lot of stick. We won't give it to them. We won't enter them for awards if they are asking for these kind of things. A little bit of carrot, I think, would be very welcome as well. So, what is the industry going to do to educate its clients? Where are the clients in the room?
Yeah.
That kind of thing, I think, would be a big step forward.
So, that was my follow-up question. I was going to ask you about what Alex has done in terms of how much carrot and how much stick. Being honest, how much carrot and how much stick do you think has been applied across government? Because no government communications now measures with AVEs, and all measures, as we saw with the PHE award entry, which I urge you all to read when it goes up on the website as a case study, is blending fantastic outcome and outtake research, as well as just the outputs, which so many of us still focus on with the content analysis. So tell us a bit more about that, please.
Yeah, so one of the things we did after 2010, very quickly, we introduced a system within the UK government whereby anybody wanting to spend any money had to justify their plan. So they had to demonstrate, first of all, that the plan made sense as a communications plan, but also that there was a reasonable set of assumptions about why that would work. And that was clearly linked to evaluation, both historic evaluation acting as a basis for the hypothesis of what they wanted to do, and a forward-looking evaluation plan to tell us whether this would work. And quite simply, if somebody couldn't do that, they didn't get the money. They weren't able to proceed. So that has been absolutely fundamental. And again, in an organization of 3,500 communicators, what we're able to do is to use that structure and very clearly say, look, if somebody isn't taking this seriously, don't expect to get promoted.
Okay, thank you. So, Deepa, let me come to you next. And we heard from the first panel, from Tina and from Dr. Kumar, comments about automation coming, and also the importance of measuring what actually matters. And that was, I think, a key theme of what you were talking about yesterday. When we think about automation, the risk I see with automation is that a lot of people think that automated charts and dashboards, because they've got charts on them, are measurement and suffice. But often we're counting things that don't matter. So what advice would you give for the region to make measurement matter, particularly in the context of all these automated solutions that we're awash with at the moment?
So I think it's extremely important to take some kind of input through technology, because it's going to be otherwise very difficult for us to be able to come to the right conclusions. But I think if we just depend on automation, then we are not going to get the right insights. So there has to be some manual intervention. There has to be a way of analyzing that in the right context, because I think more often than not we hear of content is the king, but I personally believe it's the context that is something that is really going to override and actually giving the right kind of output. So.
Yeah. Okay, and Fritz, coming to you, and thank you to everyone, of course, for your presentations yesterday too, but Fritz, thank you for yours yesterday. And obviously you run a very large brands communications across a massive region. From an in-house perspective, what's your sense of what we need to do to improve the quality of work that you're receiving?
Well, I think it goes back to what we said yesterday. It's just sort of aligning more closely with your business units or with your marketing function in the first instance. So thinking about the business that I'm in, we could do a whole lot better job in nurturing, in lead generation and development. And that just requires closer integration with our marketing team, because they already have things that they're measuring for. We're going to develop the sorts of content that's going to support them. So it isn't that we have to, it isn't that it has to be, this is 100% attributable to PR, but it can be 50%, 60%, 70%. But it requires working more closely with other people, because I think we have a hard time sometimes in communications. We come up with great ideas. We know what other people, we know what the public wants to see. So we come up with campaigns that are going to be, fun or sexy or whatever they are, but our business doesn't value them. So then why are we doing it? And you get away from that problem by talking to your business more directly and saying, what do you need and how can I help you?
Yeah, and there was a theme, Lavanya, with your talk yesterday as well, where you had a whole load of other data which you were blending in with your reports. And Tina also talked about telling the measurement story. Perhaps could you elaborate a bit on that, and how can we help organizations to tell their measurement story, particularly in terms not just of these outputs, but these outtakes and outcomes?
Yeah, I'll start talking about this as part of the business, frankly speaking, especially if you're working for a Japanese organization. We have something called Kaizen, which is all about PDCA, plan, do, check, and act. And it's a very straightforward thing. Even for communications, we shouldn't be looking at measurement as a stick, but as part of your business, as part of what you do. And most of marketing measurements are very similar. Why are we hesitant to use the same measurements? Because even marketing measures SOV, but their SOV is to do with advertising share of voice, while we are measuring in terms of coverage share.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think they're looking at impact. They're looking at SRS scores, which are the same for us as well. So one of the things that we started doing is to use the same measurement tools.
Yeah.
And to show what we are doing is very similar to what marketing is doing. And we're sharing costs for that, especially on the digital front. The cost is the same. It doesn't have to be borne by one department.
And perhaps you and Fritz could give us some insights as well into, I think a lot of us as vendors provide great big reports, 30, 50, 70 pages long, depending on what it is. But how much of that information do you use to feed up inside the organization? Because I can't believe the entire report goes to the board ever. So what's the nugget of the information that matters to you when you're reporting up within your organizations? And that's a question to both of you, but Lavanya, you first, please.
I would say two types of it. One is a regular measurement that shows a progress on a month-on-month basis, which is the standard measurement tools that we're looking at, message penetration or tonality or SOV. But the other part, which is more viable for us, is to customize what the meeting is all about and present as per requirement. For example, if it's a product launch, they're not interested in showing what is your SOV. They're interested in looking at how it has impacted the people coming to the showrooms. And this is possible because the same marketing intelligence tool is used to check whether there's been an impact of coverage in driving sales.
Yeah. And Fritz, have you got something right to add to that, please?
Yeah, I think it's largely in line with that. It's what is it within the particular campaign that we've shown that's had the best business outcome. There is one point that comes, we keep having this discussion about AVEs. There is a certain level of comfort that people within my business get from seeing our name in a headline in a tier 1 newspaper. So we do have to show them that. I think sometimes we think that it's maybe not as valuable as it is, as other people do, and in the future it's going to have less impact. But there are business leaders who still place value on that. So you do have to show it to them.
Yeah.
Over time, you're going to change the conversation a little bit. They're going to rely on it less. They're going to see that maybe this sort of media or communications is more effective for me. But for the time being, they're still. Maybe it's ego-driven, maybe, I don't know what it is, but they like to see their name in lights sometimes.
Yeah. Okay, so Nitin, coming to you next, and Nitin's with the Public Relations Consultants Association of India. I've visited the Indian PR market, and it's dynamic, it's vibrant, it's highly educated, and it wants to improve and to learn, and it's a major force. What do you think would resonate and work in your market to really help ignite it even further?
I think three things. I think one is, I think in India, I think we've talked about AVs, I think this whole discussion for the last 1 hour has been more about AVs than anything else, to be honest. And, I agree with a lot of people that AV is not dead. A lot of clients still demand it. And I think and where it kind of comes back to is, we are seeing a lot of procurement-driven contracts and pitches. And somewhere down the line, somebody needs to justify that number. And AV just becomes an easy justification for a procurement person. But it will change, it is changing. And I think what Francis mentioned on the new refreshed charter, that could be a way ahead. In India, I think the movement has to be from justification, what Andy was saying earlier. Are we using measurement for justification, or are we using it as a tool to actually invest in better communication in the future? I think that's the shift. That's the shift which we have to get clients to make. Yeah. And I think from a client perspective also, we have to help clients, not them, but actually the client stakeholders, which is the CEOs, the C-levels. I think the CEOs today need to understand how to measure and what value measurement can bring them. And that's when the whole shift will go down in the organization. So I think, I think all of us here believe what has to be done.
Yeah.
But
okay, thank you. And finally, Kiri, coming to you for an agency perspective, please. So obviously Kiri runs a communications consultancy.
Yeah, and I'm coming to this conversation with interest and not knowledge. So I run a PR agency. I work with clients on levels, whether they be government level clients through to startups. I have offices in Hong Kong and in Shanghai. So first of all, to say that we don't have the AVE problem in Shanghai because the industry there is so much younger. They don't have that expectation. But also, a lot of what we do is online. It is social media driven, and therefore there are metrics there that are much easier to showcase to clients. But coming at it from a perspective of Hong Kong and looking at our international client base, I kind of want to throw it back at AMEC and say, you're telling us within these closed rooms what the best practice is. It's now our job to take it out there. It's our job to create a really powerful PR campaign that speaks to the stakeholders. It should be coming from the people who measure in this room, who are talking to your clients to say that AVEs or other forms of metrics aren't working and this is where you should be going. Yep. We should be telling people, and something I heard at a conference last year was very insightful and useful for me, was saying what percentage of my fee should be going towards measurement and analytics. There was a variety of people saying anywhere from 5 to 15% of fees should be going towards that. That's helpful for me to know. And then allow that to pass through to my client to explain why. Without having some guideline around that and being, as I said, newer to this conversation at this level, I need to know how to implement it at the agency level and towards our clients.
Okay.
So yeah, a powerful PR campaign that gets out to stakeholders and then drives that next level to the actual PR practitioners, whether they be someone at my agency or someone on my client side.
Yeah, I think that's so important. So I'll just come to the floor. Are there some questions for any of our panelists at this point? Any thoughts? So I'll just say a few thoughts and then I'll hand back to Barry. But there's some themes that are coming through to me. Obviously, we've talked about AVs, but I think it's in the context of a positive story that there is a terminal death spiral of AVEs, and we're going to see that continue with these initiatives that we have heard. We shouldn't beat ourselves up. We shouldn't be reporting out that this conference is still talking about AVEs. We're talking about it from a good news story that it is in terminal decline. Remember, in 7 years, it's gone from 80% to just 18%, and it's continuing to decline. And with these commitments, that will go further, because it's not just vendors that can make AVEs go away. It has to be the supply has to be stopped, but the demand, most importantly, has to be stopped as well. And that's where we all need to work together. And on that subject, we need to work globally. And a personal plea from me that we all speak with a consistent voice. We have to say what we mean and mean what we say. We have to make sure that when we talk about outputs, we're defining the right thing. Outtakes, we're defining the right thing. Outcomes, we're defining the right thing. When you go back to your markets, please help us to spread this message, because I think we're hearing as well how important education is right across not just the Asia-Pacific region, but the world in total. So Barry, back to you.
What I'd like to do is invite any of our, one last time, because we've got a panel the like of which we've never had before. So it would be discourteous not to ask one last time, do we have any questions from the floor?
Good morning, I'm Karen from Midas PR in Bangkok. My question is, when I get PR reports from ICCO, for example, what I get is AVEs. So how is it that all of you are talking about the fact that AV is declining, and yet the providers are providing just that? And I especially ask them, can you give me a report that is different, that is not AVEs? And then they did come back to me with a proposal that is humongous. That's 20 times more than the AV cost, and that no client will pay. So how do you explain that?
I think in a spirit of fairness, Carly Sakis from ICCO, I think we should come to you with microphone, please, to Carly, who's waving. Think a conversation afterwards.
I think so. It's a good one for the break. Thank you for raising this issue. There are some companies in this industry that have the AVE as our Achilles heel. And I think that our membership of AMEC is an important part of, I guess, overcoming that and working towards not providing that for our clients. The reality is, and I mentioned this yesterday, is that AVEs are cheaper than quality insights. It does require more investment to actually get to business outcomes. That's a reality. But I will pick it up at the break if that's okay, Barry. Yeah, thank you.
Is that a good answer?
Well, yes. I would be really happy if it would be something that could be provided to us, because at the moment, our team is spending 1 week per month creating the reports from scratch by ourselves.
Okay.
So it would be a great thing.
So I really do suggest you two have a conversation over a coffee. Carly will no doubt point you in other directions. I'm not going to put that question to the panel because we'll be here until lunchtime, unless anyone has a very strong point of view. I think it's resolvable. A quick question, Phil. Microphone. Please wait for the microphone. Microphone here. Wave, Phil, please.
So we've got measurement as a useful tool for showing the value of comms to the organisation, and then measurement as a strategic tool to do the job better. In the experience of the panel, where's your weighting on that? 50-50? Is it more a reporting tool, more an insight tool?
I'd suggest that's a one-sentence answer.
It should be an insight too.
Okay, great.
I agree. It should be an insight.
So it's to do the job better.
Absolutely.
Any comments down here?
Anyone disagree?
Anyone disagree that it's the insights tool?
I don't disagree. It should be an insights tool, but it isn't. It's not the way when you're looking at a PR agency-client relationship. It's not. It's a measurement. You're just looking at what's the result. And again, it comes back to that question that was asked by our friend from Bangkok agency here, is we don't have the money from the client to make it an insights tool.
Right.
And so organizations like this make the call out to the client that the investment, we need to know what percentage of fees, we need to know how much that's going to cost, and say that it's no longer an option, it's mandatory.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I will share with the panel and with the audience from my latter PR experience with a international consultancy headquartered out of London, where I was CEO, and we had a massive South Korean electronics company, and it was worth a lot of money. There was zero budget available for measurement. So in order to get the contract, you have to make a commercial decision as an agency. Am I prepared to invest part of the agency fee, which is sacrilege, but in order, how badly do you want the business? And it is possible, once you've got the business, to then educate the client that they should allocate a proportion of the total budget to measurement.
Can I just also say that it's not an either-or. It's not a question of are you spending money on justification or are you spending money on development. Quite often the financial pressure will come on the client to use evaluation as justification. And certainly in government we have to do that. We're spending your money and we're going to get questioned by opposition politicians, by the press, etc., to make sure that that's being done properly. But that same set of data and hopefully analysis leading to insight can also be used for proper further communications development. It's about closing that loop. We don't have to see these things as in opposition or fighting each other for resource.
Thank you.
It's definitely both. You know, a lot of our clients are under pressure to prove value. They ask us to prove value. It has to be both.
So I'm going to start to draw the session to a close. I want to invite any other of our insights experts in the room to make a comment, maybe addressed to that particular Bangkok delegate's point. Do we have any?
So Paul.
Any views?
Paul Hender for a microphone here, please.
Thank you. It's a very interesting dilemma. We're an only measurement company, and we have to fight for that budget. And we actually are in a situation where we're very well known among PR companies because we're taking their budgets of their campaigns when we're good at convincing that measurement is required. So regarding the topic of making measurement non-negotiable, we're having two good experiences. One, working in the present, kind of infiltrating university programs, being part of making the case at the end of the syllabus, both from the end of a professor, so including it in the program, and also the students demanding professors to talk about the measurement. And that has actually, it seems like a long-term strategy, but it's working in the short term. Very quickly, we have students including measurement as part of their work after they come out of a postgraduate program. And the second one, and I think you mentioned it a moment ago, is if we're able to demonstrate causality and forecast, I guess those are two very powerful ways of making measurement non-negotiable. So if we're able to do this, we'll probably get to the point, I believe that's the path to go, to assign a percentage of the budget of PR for measurement. But we have to get there. We can't start from there. And it's a measurement task, really.
Okay,
so
thank
that's
you.
How it's going.
Mazen, do you have a point of view about how do you wean people away to a different form of measurement other than AVs? We need a microphone here, please, at the front.
Mazen, can you please raise your hand so they can find you? Thank you.
I think what Brian mentioned a bit earlier really struck me as
the right way to move forward, and that's to not negotiate on the value that we're delivering, really to focus on providing that senior level counsel to people who ultimately are making decisions on behalf of the entire business. Once we get into that area, AVE has become very irrelevant and of low value. So I take that point, and I think that's what struck me from this panel as being a strong one, and I'd advocate for that.
Thank you. So, final comment from Paul Hender, if you're in the room.
Hi. I was actually going to make a more general point around, I guess, making it non-negotiable in Asia, this market.
Yes.
If you look at the AMEC Business Insights Survey, which was published yesterday, you can see that Asia represents quite a small proportion of the membership. So I think it was 20% compared to 61% from Western Europe and 46% from North America. So I think there's clearly a big opportunity to grow the membership here. And that's what I'd call a kind of tier one route, but there's a tier two as well, which is, and this is an experience we've had in Europe, that one of the challenges with the summit like this is you're kind of almost speaking to the converted. So that by definition, all of us here are interested in measurement. So the challenge is then to reach out to a much broader industry. And I think the responsibility there lies with all of us to take the messages that we learned today and then to spread that message either through our own events or our own thought leadership, or I think as was mentioned earlier on, involvement with local organizations like the PRCA and the China version we heard earlier on.
Yep. So what I'm going to do now is draw this to a close. And what I would say to our speakers, if you, by being here, didn't get much airtime, we didn't come to you with as many questions as maybe you had hoped, don't worry about that. By being here, each of you, you've made a very clear statement of your intent to help us, and for which we thank you. So please thank our speakers.